This is James Dumont, and you are watching the Break It Down show because we're going to break it
That
down.
is an incredible background, man. I love it. I wish I had a grand piano and a grand archway.
It is not real. It is not mine at all. Very few working class actors like myself have this lovely. It's called virtual reality.
Yeah. I love talking to actors. You know, we're all in this entertainment field. We're all in the creative field. We certainly could pick other things. You know, we could all go work for the county. You know,
that's right.
and make more reliable money and have retirement set up. But that's not the path we chose. When did you know you were cursed with this wonderful life of having to be a creator, an actor, that kind of thing?
That's a great question. It's my favorite question. Whenever I'm interviewing people, it's the first thing I ask is what was the first aha moment that you figured out that you want to be a storyteller? It's a great question. Mine is twofold. One is I'm old, and the first season of Sesame Street came on, and I remember watching kids on TV and pointing to and of course parents were all freaked out because TV was the thing. But like we were just watching television, like hours and hours, like, oh my God. And you're a little kid. And I think I was like 3. Yeah, probably 3 or 4. And I go, I want to do that. Because I saw kids on television having fun, living in New York with animals and like puppets and stuff. And I'm like, who doesn't want that? I just want to be in that box. So I remember the early part of that. That was the first kind of like aha moment. And then my mom submitted my baby pictures for the Gerber baby bottles. It was a contest, and I actually won. Yeah. So my picture, the early getting into the business, my baby picture was sketched out on a Gerber baby bottle. So I was one of the Gerber babies that was selected.
No kidding.
Yeah. So that was like the first inroads. And then my parents got divorced when I was 5, and I lived with my dad, and my dad traveled all over, and we had this. It's a story that I tell in my one-man show, Being My Life as a DJ. And I remember my dad had a great collection of records. And it was this drunken woman named Joan, who was the wife of the super. And I put on a Frank Sinatra song, The Summer Wind. And she started to weep and cry because she used to dance with her son to that song. And he had just died in Vietnam. Mm. And as a 5-year-old kid, I was like, wow, I did something that affected another person. You know, I put a piece of music on and that took her to a place, and she smiled and wept and danced by herself. But I was like, for someone who was a 5-year-old kid going, wow, I want to feel like my parents in the middle of divorce. I want to feel like I have some sort of impact, or I have some sort of influence, right? So I think the combination of those two things of like seeing the potential of little kids being on television going, that's a thing you can do. And then going, wow, if I tell this story or I put on this piece of music, someone will be affected by it. And that gave me this sense of awokenness to perhaps I might be a storyteller. And I always had this constant smile. I always had a fairly positive outlook. I still do to this day. And my point is that I go, it finds you or you find it. It's a kind of it can be one or the other. But I know for me, those were the two kind of like flashpoints of where the aha moment happened.
Yeah. No, I dig it. So the other day, I don't know if you're in Southern California like I am, but the other day I was up in LA at a studio where they do art, dance, all kinds of different media, but it's all creative based. And the theme of this studio where they teach people how to act or dance, whatever it is, they use neurodivergent people as their clients. And so they bring in kids with Downs that want to become actors. They can bring in kids that have, or adults that have some kind of autism or Asperger's, and they turn them into viable professional people, if at all possible, and they get them gigs. And the guy's name is John. Here, I'll put the link for the episode. The guy's name is John Pazes. And they had this. So part of what they do is they help manage that person. Because obviously if you have Down syndrome and you go into a professional set, you need an advocate, that knows you. And so they had this kid come on, and he's got Down syndrome, and the director gave him some basic direction, and he goes in to this attic area where it's nostalgia is everywhere, and just starts crying, and those kind of gifts, real acting from somebody who really should have that part, has a chance to be a professional actor. It's an amazing thing. And we're all in this world where we get to meet all of these. I mean, you don't have to be neurodivergent to be incredible in this field, but there's so many opportunities to see somebody do something amazing.
Neurodivergent in many, and that has many different forms,
yeah. Emotional divergent too.
Some sort of neurodivergent thing going on, that whether they're subconscious or it's overtly part of their everyday life. But yeah, you're 100%
right.
Yeah,
I always like the people that work in costume design or in props, and that's what they're made to do. Nobody picks that. Nobody wants to curse themselves with that life, because it's not a gentle career, right?
No.
But it's a beautiful thing when you're doing it.
Yeah, and that's I like. And I started coaching about 9 years ago, and I never thought I would love it as I still don't love it as much as I love being on set and working in front of the camera. But I found another thing that has awoken me to a greater purpose, mission, and impact. Somebody was saying that, there's only so much physical, and this is where I'm at now. I'm 100% mid-career in so many different ways and forms of another. I'm like halfway. I'm right at the halfway point, And so the real question is, what do I want to do with this rest part of the time that I'm here? And one of the things that somebody was saying is, like, when you teach and you plant the seed and you give someone an opportunity or you open a door, you live forever. And again, I know the inevitability that I'm physically not going to be here the whole time. But if I can find a way in which to, whether my body of work or the kind of people that I've met or the kind of students that I kind of raise and mentor, they'll remember that I live forever in their hearts and minds. And so beyond the legacy of my children, which I'm quite proud of, and rightfully so, because they've gone through I've watched everybody go through so much. And it's, to be a 20-year-old person in this world, knowing the planet's melting and knowing that there are factions of people that are trying to purposely poison the differences between human beings, when the reality is we only have one heart and we have two lungs, hopefully, thankfully. And the reality is that to divide us is how they're going to rule. And it's like, you got to know that drug use is up and suicides are up, and social media is not social, it's antisocial, and it's creating a lot of problems. And so the fact that you can have a positive influence or give someone or plant the seed of enlightened possibility, eternal possibility, there's nothing greater than that, in my opinion, And I have students that are like brand spanking new 72-year-old retired judge, African-American female judge from Massachusetts, like, who's an actress. And I've trained her to be a formidable actress that can hold her own with any. She could be Denzel's mom tomorrow. And she was able to memorize dialogue because she was a family court judge and was able to look at depositions beyond deposition. So that's nothing. And then somebody who's who's been doing this a long period of time and hit like a bad patch of, misrepresentation, kind of got canceled a little bit for saying some things and, self-sabotage. So I have over 2,000 students all over the world. Thankfully not all at once, so I can have a career of myself. And I have things automated in the system. But my point is that, and this is a big one and goes to the heart of what you're saying, is really where we're breaking it down here, is the universal human truth of a movie like It's a Wonderful Life is that we don't necessarily realize how much of a positive impact we have on each other. As I said very clearly, without getting political, because it's not political, this is just human nature. But in order for people to poison the well, they have to learn how to talk about the differences as opposed to what we have in common with each other. How that one person's freedom actually is at the expense of our own freedom, which is an untruth. And so the reality is that I go back to the It's a Wonderful Life, is you never necessarily know how much of an impact, and I mean on the positive end, how much of a positive impact you can have and how that can change the outcome of people's lives. Like my personal, my assistant was living in New Bedford, Massachusetts, was in a relationship that he didn't want to be in. He was engaged. She wants to buy a house. She's a teacher. So he was about to get a house. He was about to get married, settle down in New Bedford, right? And he got the bug. And he came into my class and he was like, I don't want to be in this relationship. I don't want to own a home. I want to move to New Orleans. I want to be an actor. And in short order, he comes down here. He gets an agent. He gets pictures. He books, NCIS New Orleans, and his friends back in New Bedford, half a dozen of them die from one overdose, from depression, from one thing or another. And he turns to me and said, had I not found you, had I not awoken to, I don't think I would be alive. Yeah. So I know that this is just but one example, is we don't necessarily know how much of a positive impact we can have on each other's lives. So we need to respect that. We need to respect every life, every human. Every person has this potential. And so again, one may look at these as political things, but these are just human things. And because I'm a storyteller, my job is to figure out the human condition in myself and others. That's the gig, to be able to speak truth to power. Yeah. And that's why I wake up. That's why that's why I'm, it's a calling. It's a mission. It's not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart. No. For me, I'm a 21st century storyteller. You're going to hand in my email. It's going to be a human being that I have to create in a 24 to 48 hour period of time, document it, send it off. And that may be the end of it. I may never be able to tell that story of that human being again. If they give me a costume and they give me some money and put me in front of the camera, it's gravy. But the reality is, I'm a human. I create human beings and tell stories, whether I get paid or not. Yep. And I don't know. Yep. That's kind of a cool thing. I get to be people that I wouldn't piss on if they were on fire. You know what I mean? Yeah. But those human beings exist because these are the stories of our time. And I also say to people, and again, I don't mean to get on a long monologue here, but I say never disrespect the storyteller. Before billionaires, before politicians, lawyers, doctors, scientists, were human beings that didn't even have words, that would have grunts, and they would scroll things in rocks on walls, telling the story of the people before. So don't ever disrespect a storyteller, because they were the first communication of human existence. Before there were words, we go back so far. So again, I know we're easily influenced by all the money and the power and the influence. But the reality is, when COVID hit and everybody went indoors and freaked out, what did they do? They jumped on stories. They ate up content like crazy. They listened to music. They sat and talked to each other at the dinner table for the first time in decades. Like, the point was, we need human interaction. We need each other. So FAI, the human story is still the most important. The human connection is most important. It doesn't substitute things. It's one form of entertainment. But the reality is that, like, I stem from the first communicators of the world that exists before me. I don't know, dude. I think that's a pretty great gig. And if you want to disrespect it, I go, I don't make money like somebody else, and I don't have the big house. I got a fake virtual reality when people live like this. I think the fireplace is actually. Oh, I thought the fireplace was on for a second. Oh, man. So that's my long-winded monologue there. Yeah.
I love it. You said a lot of things that are interesting and right on the spot for me. So, and this, I don't mean to distract the show with this, but I want to give you a little background on me. I used to be a spy, and I would go out. And one of the things you learn when you do my kind of spying, which is going out into combat places, is that at their base, people all want very similar things. They want their kids to do better than they did. Nobody likes cancer. And if you get real lowest common denominator with these folks, like, I'm just trying to get through the day. Right. I don't want the government on my back. These are all common themes. Right. If you want to help me, ask me what help I need. Don't assign me a problem and then give me a solution that has nothing to do with who. So all of these, that's everybody. That's everybody on the planet. If all said that, though.
Like, can we stop pretending that somebody else's freedom isn't it's bullshit. That's how dictators have been ruling for centuries, is to make it seem like, and we want, there's the people that are in the, the castle, and then everybody else. It's like, no, that disparity doesn't work anymore. Like, it doesn't, and the fact that people just are buying into it is really kind of, it's a sad thing. But also, I think we too, George Carlin would say, being willfully ignorant. You know what I mean? Ignorance is a choice. Yeah. Be uninformed and to not know and to not fact check, not look at the truth. That's a choice. And you know what? There's a cost for that. But to be informed and to be present and to be that's a choice too. And that's a choice that I choose, is to go, I check and recheck and fact something. Like, I'm like, is that true? And even my own mind can have my own, I always go, everybody has their own fears, worries, and anxieties. And I have to kind of doubt my doubts. Is that really going to happen? Is that
you're a shade older than me? Yeah. Just a little bit, but I am old enough to know that my initial reaction, if it's bad, I sense that, and I go, that's not the right action, Pete. Think about this. And I sit with it for a sec, and then my adult brain kicks in, and it's like, you know what? That isn't that big of a deal. And even if I disagree with something, is that reasonable? Look, and I've seen a lot of crazy shit in my time. So is that a reasonable and rational approach for that person?
Right. Yeah.
And so often it is. And it's like, okay, so the conversation is about what I need or anything else. Like, I'm going to allow you to be a good person, allow you to be doing your best, allow you to have a bad day, and be like, that's all right. And when you talked about anti-social media, it's so true, where, like, if I go on Twitter and I have a conversation with somebody, they'll insult me in a second. And look, that's adorable. You're a precious little baby. The guy staring in my mirror is way harder than me than anybody on Twitter.
Yeah, there's nothing you can say to me that I haven't done to myself. So good luck.
Yeah. Like, I actually want to kill myself a lot of days. So you're a little princess with your little insult about my hairline or whatever. Yeah,
which is so courageous of you to be doing it in a form of which I can't see you, or you can't.
Yeah, right.
You're not.
But if you and I sat down having this great conversation, and we were face to face, we could pierce that virtual veil. It would be, and this, it would be so much richer. Correct. And we could dive in ways that are infinitely more valuable than some nonsense on social media. And look, social media has its place and has its purposes. I'm on it and all that kind of thing. But I would rather sit across from you and have a nightcap, or have a chat, or meet a mutual friend, or meet a new friend with you, than to spend 5 minutes on social media. Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing is, but that's of our generation and where we've come to. There's other generations, like, my kids my young adults are in their 20s now. They're in their early 20s.
Right.
And their sense of social interaction. I mean, I saw it happen as a DJ. The days of when I would start DJing was like the early 80s disco time. People were hands-on all over each other. People doing dancing as groups. They would do a thing with like a line dancer, like each person would kind of do their thing. And now it's like, I remember when the phones came in and the iPods came in, all of a sudden it was like, you'd see 5 people dancing alone by themselves in the same space. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. Wow. So weird. Right. Or the, can I put my hand
each other in their own thing, or like 3 or 4 people grooving on the same song, but individually, but not interacting with each other, but they're standing right next to each other. I was just like, what? So I watched this desocialization of human people interact, and it was hard. I must tell you, it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And then now the political correct, like what you can and can't do and who you can touch, permission and all. And I'm like, there was a time there was no limits. No, I was at Studio 54, the last summer of Studio 54, and Limelight and Palladium and the Dance Security. And they're like, this was Babylon, my man. You know what I mean? There were all the drugs, all the sex, all the drinking.
Yeah.
There were just no boundaries. And there were some things to that. And then, of course, the 80s kick in, and then, rules and this and, laws and, but it's like, it's an interesting to watch. And now I'm starting to see a little bit. I'm very hopeful and optimistic always. It's just a better way to live. And I am seeing more people now understanding I think from COVID too, there's still this kind of like social, I wouldn't say retardation, but there is a social disconnect that's kind of happened.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to see 4 years later, people starting to better understand the value of that. And I have to equate that to one of the forms of storytelling that has not and will not change for centuries is live theater. Like live theater is having a moment, because when it was lost and taken away, they started to see the value of being in the live moment, where that moment in time will never be duplicated. No one is ever going to breathe or have the same heartbeats in the same room at the same time. So all of a sudden, and same thing with live music. It's like, oh my God, how much do I love the experience of live music now, because because it was taken away from me, So there is this, and I do feel this is that cyclical 100-year cycle. Because if you really looked at that first pandemic, and two world wars going on at the same time. You know what I mean? You got world wars going on and a pandemic and a so, but that the Roaring 20s was like those great thinkers, those great storytellers, those great poets, scientists, musicians. There was out of the phoenix, out of the ashes came this phoenix. And I think we're in another 100-year cycle. I believe it just happens to happen with a lot of technology. That's all, Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing I would say is, like you, I'm an optimist. I get dark and I get cynical and all that kind of thing. Yeah. But
temporary.
The more robots take over, and Brad's got his comment about have my interview robot interview your interview robot, and it's like, I don't want that. But the more that kind of thing becomes a norm and less of a joke, the more the Babylon Bee gets things right. You're like, hey, you know what I can do is I can just get more human.
Correct.
And I can go experience things with people that are making real things. I have no problem with people using technology, and there's so many great technology. As a matter of fact, a counterpoint to your DJ thing, there is a DJ that I know. He's in my friend group, and he is part of a DJ set that they'll give everybody their own headset, and they can get like one of like 5 feeds, and so you're all in the same room and you're dancing, but you're not. It's quiet, it's silent in there, right? And so you can look like, oh, that's a red, oh, that's a blue, or that's a green, and
then
so
you hang with those people, right? No, I've watched it happen. Because they do it here in New Orleans. They do the silent DJ thing at the Bayou.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. The guy is in New Orleans. He's one of the DJs. He's the DJ for the Saints.
I love it,
and it's neat, right?
Because then the blues are hanging with each other, and reds are hanging, and then they switch up, and then you're like, oh, let me go over here. Let me see.
That's hilarious that you knew about that.
Yeah, no, dude, that was that because they did it at Bayou Boogaloo, which is near my house in New Orleans. I live in New Orleans. And I have an apartment in New York, and I have a place to stay in LA. So I'm tri-coastal. I used to be Bayou coastal. Now I'm tri.
Hilarious.
But yeah, so that is helping actually more socialization and interaction. And also that interesting thing about I'm identifying my own tribe. I'm going, I'm listening to the Reds, so let me hang with the Reds. Or what are the Greens doing? There is that kind of like sense of exploration. Same thing would happen when people are interacting with each other in terms of dancing stuff. Like this person starts a move or this person does a line thing that, oh, now it's my chance to do my contribution to the collective in here. Have your bot interview my bot. Yeah. There's also another generation that are raised on cell phones and a generation that's actually raised on virtual reality. And this is going to be the big question of the future content creation is, does an audience really care if it's a human being or if it's virtual? Do they care?
Right.
If you're still entertained, does it matter? And that's to be determined. As I said, with live theater, there hasn't been an AI component to it, but who's to say that won't happen in the future? But I also see that I'm like you. There was a time where you used to get up and have to change the channel. Now you have this little clicker. We used to have to have a phone that could only go a certain distance from a cord. Now I got this. So we've all kind of adjusted to the various technologies without, of course, even when TV came in. I mean, my family's from the original DuMont television, which is the first television network. And so it's like when televisions came in, everybody was freaking out about how they were not going to be on the radio and not talk to each other, and they're going to just get in front of this box. There was fears and worries about what it is as opposed to what it could be and how it can change the way we communicate or interact. So, the bots, interviewing bots, it's like if people are still entertained, Raj Smoot. I know exactly who Raj Smoot is.
Yeah, I had to put that up so you can appreciate that. Yeah, Raj is our guy, man.
Who doesn't know Raj Smoot in New Orleans? It's like there's two major DJs and Raj is one of them. So
yeah. Well, Raj, so the co-founder of my show is a guy named John Rivera. Raj is his cousin by marriage, but he's his cousin, and so there you go. We got roots. You and I were more connected than we thought, which kind of goes to the thing.
Again, I go back with I was in the play 6 Degrees of Separation. We're all less than 6 degrees from each other. So all this BS about how different we are and how this person's a threat it's bullshit.
Go meet that person and watch. They're not a threat.
They're not. They're not,
because they allow them to be a good person. Allow them to know their neighborhood.
Well, I think the thing is that this has been the thing that have been my main point now is, all men and women are created equal, but we don't treat each other equally, and that's the truth. And I think we wouldn't be having any wars over land or whatever it may be, or if we truly realize that each individual has eternal, infinite possibility, I don't think we would put a different value. I think if everybody has of equal value in terms of life potential, I think we would be looking at things differently. So for me, I'm always trying to find, I'm a Buddhist of 36 years. So I'm always trying to look for and identify what is their inherent potential. Even though on the outside, or I may disagree or something like that. I mean, I even have empathy for our former president that people don't have empathy for, because at the root of that, I realized that person was never loved without conditions. And so therefore they had to make up for that. One thing that a father could do for a son is to just to love them unconditionally. And if that happened, the person would be a different person. So, as much as my job as I see it is because I'm trying to figure out, and I only have, this is the big thing for my gig, I get 24 to 48 hours to figure it all out.
Yeah.
I have to get like an ER doctor. I have to get really quick at figuring out where this person lies.
Yeah.
And then work from that place, And again,
let's talk about that. Yeah. I want to get into that because that's interesting. So when it's fascinating to me.
Like there's a human being waiting for me in an email in the next day to figure out how to create and shoot, document, edit it, sound it, light it, perform it, memorize it, send it off, and then let it go, and then really let it go. It's the only the controllable, as I always say, control your controllable, especially as any creator, is, worry about the things that you have control. My wife reminds me constantly about, why do you spend any time or energy worrying about something you cannot control? Yeah. Why do you give yourself any, and again, this is Jerry Seinfeld's newest thing about Marcus Aurelius, is like, we spend so much time worrying about things we can't control. The thing we control is our influence, our ability to master something. And this is what I mastered, creating human beings in a short period of time.
So when you get a call from your agent or an email or whatever it's going to be, and they throw you a person to become, and you're, look, for everybody who doesn't know, James is very successful. He's getting lots of gigs on big things. And so, when we I love to ask people, what do you do for a living? You can say actor, and so everybody should know he's an actor and he gets paid to do these things. Okay. So when a project comes to you, one of the rubs with all of this stuff is you have to say yes to everything up to a point, and then later on you reach a certain level and you can be like, you know what, that's not my guy. That's not, because you know what your truth is, right? Sure, you can act some other way, but it's scary to start to say no to projects because you want projects you are so desperate for projects to come in the door. You don't want to say no to anything.
You are running about when you chase it for so long, you want to do it, and you have that crack mentality of like, I can't not do this because this is what I'm here on the planet. It's hard to be strategic, but it's necessary in order to kind of, like I'm 170 credits in, almost 200, 200 really, if you think about, the 20 episodes of Gemstones at this point. But it's like, So to comment on that, was there a question there in terms of that, or?
Well, no, just talking about that comfort, and then how, I guess maybe when did you sort out where like, it is okay, this machine, because there's another thing that happens too from talking to all you all is that there will always be a lull and you'll have to reinvent and redefine. And that's a norm. Maybe it doesn't happen for everybody, but it happens often enough that everybody should be ready for it, right?
Right.
And so you have to know when to say no. You have to make good choices. You have to elevate your status within the community. And just saying yes to everything just means that you're always available until the second they don't need you anymore.
That's right.
So it's just, how do you meter that? How do you decide, when did you develop and maybe you haven't, when did you develop that callus that allows you to go, yeah, that one's not for me?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, especially after coming off of COVID, where there was no on-camera work, and then there was a flood of work, and then they had a flood of people available for that work, and then 2 strikes back to back, and then bringing in what I believe can be a good advocate in terms of bringing large technology companies like Amazon and Apple into the mix. I think there are pluses and a lot of minuses to them. The pluses are they got money from other sources. They can throw money at really good projects. They can, even though the compensation is far less than most, but but they also apply the same, capitalist formula, which is the folks on top make the most. Everybody else, we're going to try to get them for as little as we possibly can. So there is that kind of squeezing, from the bottom up, pretty much.
Yeah.
So for me, that has been more of I think, I want to say like, March of 2020, after doing this for 40 years, March of 2020, I was at a career high. No two ways about it. Spencer Confidential, I had, they flew me out. Netflix put me in a hotel. I used to fly myself out. I used to rent a car. I used to stay on my sister's couch. Do you know what I mean? Like it changed. And I did the movie, and I had 400 people circling me because I'm Tracksuit Charlie, and then the world goes indoors. The week my movie drops on Netflix, Spencer Confidential was like #1 for like 2 months, 3 months, because you just happened to be the movie that was indoors. And then The Banker was right after that, and Apple flew me out for The Banker, and so these 2 movies kind of dropped when the world went indoors, which was a great thing for me. So I would, and I'm a big agency, both my son and I are in a big agency, and they're excited about, that's where things were in that time period. And it has gotten progressively more difficult and hard as since. And so that sense of, at that point in time, half the jobs that I was getting were offers. They were just straight offers. They knew my work. I had built up a body of work. Dallas Buyers Club kind of pulled me out of the pack of character actors because everybody in the industry saw that. So that coupled with these large supporting roles in Trumbo and Deepwater Horizon and now Spencer Confidential, things are moving in a certain direction. So half those things were just straight offers, which is also a weird thing too, of like, to turn down an offer. Like, I don't even have to audition. You're just kind of giving it to me because of my body of work. That was hard to say no to certain things. I always discern it by like, is that a story and a character that I either haven't done before or I want to do? And I always work on that. I work from, is this a kind of character and story that I want to tell? And the financials are another component of it. Does it make sense on paper? Do I have to live there? Am I going to lose money from other things to take that job? So there's a lot of factors in that regard. And then the other 50% are the ones that I feel like I earned it in one regard that you're offering it to me. But then the other ones that I really have to earn are I got to show you what I'm going to do. You know, I got to do a job. I do 50 to 100 job interviews a year. And in a good year, 5. In a great year, 10. But that means the other 95, or the other 90, I still put in the same passion, love, and energy and, work into it. It just didn't lead to an outcome or a result. And I'm a journeyman actor. So I've also been doing this enough to do like you talked about, is I'm on it's a marathon. I'm not a sprinter. I've seen sprinters come and go out of our business. Somebody been really good at, or they're a kid actor and they were hot, and then all of a sudden they're done, or they're very good at doing that one thing, and all of a sudden that thing's no longer favorable anymore. So as I'm a journeyman actor, I have dreams, goals, and aspirations, but I realize that I'm on a journey. So all my real responsibilities go back to, Seinfeld and Marcus Aurelius. My job is to just be a master of this storytelling, a master of the human condition. That's the only thing I'm good at. So
about what you're talking about, because it is possible in your field that you can latch on to, like, you've had gig, and it's going great, right? You're working with Don Johnson, like you're getting you may not even get a part, but they're like, no, he's not right for this. However, 2 projects down already has the gig. You don't even know, if that project survives, they're like, we're going to hire James, right?
Yep.
So when you have these opportunities on occasion, they attach themselves to you. Gemstones, but like, let's go procedural. Let's go a whole different thing. And there's nothing wrong with procedurals. Yep. But if you ended up on NCIS and you were in NCIS Salt Lake City, the new one, right?
Yeah.
And that was your gig for the next 10 years, like Mariska Hargitay, right? Like, she has one career, but it doesn't afford you as much of that artistic freedom, right? It's great. You still get to be an artist and everything else. We're not talking bad about this, but it is kind of an artistic golden handcuffs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I feel that when I work with them in that regard, that they made a pact with this, like a little pact with the devil. It's like, I get to be a series regular, and this is what I'm going to do. And this is what people are going to remember me for the rest of my life.
Right.
And, I have all the financial security that I need because of these things, but I don't get the freedom you get to do to go off and then do this movie and do these things. I even have a very, friend of mine's very, very famous, been acknowledged on lots of awards. And there was a little part of, that person that was really like a little envious and jealous that I could kind of do all these things. And this person's really kind of going in a certain way, Right. And now they're having the kind of career that they were watching me do, of like the diversity of things, because also the business too, and also audience as well. They're used to watching Don Johnson as a television star because he is.
Right.
I've worked with this person. This is not this is a television star, and works accordingly and handles themselves as if we're in the 1980s television show. So my point is that that we want that person back on television. We want them in those things because that's what the audience wants. And then the person starts to feel, look, again, you have to do a Matthew McConaughey and go, okay, yeah, you want me as a romantic, lead comedy guy, but I know that I'm capable of doing other things. And so therefore then you have to find and recreate a way in which for audiences to change and adapt.
If you can.
If you make that choice. But if you don't, and that's fine, and the demands of the Law and Order schedules and that life, and there's only so much time in your hiatus to be able to like live and be with your kids and breathe and not be under the stress and strain of the responsibility of carrying a show. I totally understand that you don't want to make your feature film debut in the 3 or 4 months that you have off to relax. So I get it, but everybody is carved differently because, everybody's journey is different. That's why I also say don't compare. There's also a really great book that I want to recommend to people for those who are actors, called Audition for Your Career, Not the Job. And it's by Tim Phillips, Phillips. And it's about, I helped him write the book. I was one of his students and he mentored me for about 10 years. And he taught me everything I need to know about auditions. I mean, and I've learned so much more even from the base things that he taught me that have now expanded in the way in which that I teach. And you can find it on Amazon. It's a really great book. But the title of it speaks to what you're talking about, which is every single time that I'm doing a job interview, I'm auditioning for my career, not that job. There may be many, reasons why that I'm not going to get. But if I make enough of an impression, that if I really like, I like I'm liking what I do now to being an on-camera artist. I consider myself artist in the form of human beings on camera, and like an artist or a painter, just like in Van Gogh's lifetime, he never made a dime. Yeah. And it never stopped. And if he did that, and he's the most world-renowned, most well-paid artist ever, he still created art without remuneration. So one goes, if Van Gogh can continue to create art without getting paid for it, and doing it for the pure love of that's what their mission and purpose in the world was, and only later will somebody pay and they pay out, then what's my problem? You know what I mean? Yeah. I go, for me, I'm not doing it for that fame or that money or that outcome, or that kind of attention. And that's an interesting thing now, that some people are creators for attention and monetizing it, which is fine. You're entitled to do that, and entertainment is fine. But it's not going to be enough, and it's not going to satisfy you enough.
No, right.
It's not going to be the thing, because then when that attention goes away or that monetization goes away, then what? Then you're just a storyteller that needs attention, and so you're going to do outrageous things and DUIs and beat people up and have
absolutely
destroy families. You know what I mean? Like the point is so why are you creating? What's the point of it? Towards what end?
Yeah. And you have to understand the competition is fierce too, because you're talking about Van Gogh, but we learned from Sly Stone, who was on the show early on. He's like, if my music isn't good enough, I don't deserve to eat.
Correct.
And so you're competing like, I've cut back to the bone. We have basic cable, and he's like, I'm not eating until I make it great. There's people that are just out there. And you talk about that pressure from the top, like we're going to squeeze people out because we don't want people that are halfway in. We want people that we can bank on that will make us money. And as you make money, ding, 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 you graduate, hopefully up the scale and become more valuable. But the pressure is to pressure you out, because it's all of these businesses are tough, right? That every project, every gemstones, it's a miracle that it happened. And then it got renewed and renewed. Oh my God.
We're finishing season 4 on tomorrow,
every idea,
and that's COVID and 2 strikes, and we still get to tell the story. So nothing short of a miracle, right. This season, by far the best season so far, and again, there's also talk that we're on the button now. We may not get a 5th season. I'm just like, what? Like we went through all this. You got to give us 5. You got to give us 10. We got through all of it, but then they're looking at it as a business. They're going, how many eyes, how can we, how can we get our shareholders to sell back their shares and make a lot of money and still charge people as much as we possibly can to subscribe and add advertising to it and still make money? How can we figure out a way? So again, it's a strange bedfellow. It's a strange relationship.
It is. Well, and there are so many things competing.
It always is.
There's so many things competing for attention too. A show that didn't survive the pandemic was that fantastic Lakers, Jeff Pearlman's book. It was called Showtime. Yeah. That thing was fantastic. And it was just getting started.
I would have watched it all day long, bro. You could have got me, and so why, again, they're just when you have this is a strange time right now, because we're on the line, we're relying upon the deep pockets of these technology companies that have other sources of income that can withstand a strike, and it's just one part of their business, and they work that same thing of like union busting, or the people that are making these cell phones live in slave conditions to make myself do you understand who we're aligning ourselves with? And I'm a big fan of all that, because I go, you need that money in order to tell. But then the question now is, here's technology. Do we really need that money? Can someone create an entire feature film through AI without having to use human beings? Can they create their pitch deck? Can they edit it? Do they need an editor? Do they need a sound person? Do they need lighting? Do they need costumes, makeup? Again, we are definitely at a very interesting time in the world. And I'm not scared of it, because I kind of go like, that's, I'm trying to embrace it as best I can.
Yeah, it's the game you're playing.
I'm building pitch decks right now for things that I'm producing off of AI, because it is the easiest, cheapest, affordable way for me to do things. And I'm not as tech savvy as other people are. And I've watched people spend years putting together pitch decks, and I'm doing it in 15, 20 minutes. So it's like, there are some advantages to this. I have to spell check everything. I have to fact check. I have to make sure that my sources are correct. Like, I'm not
absolutely
person.
Yeah.
But
it is like having a drunk intern, but very talented.
Very talented, but super unpredictable, and you don't know what you're going to get. It's they'll show up, but is it really to the point that you want? So I feel like there's we're at a very interesting time, which and the fact that we can figure out now that you can actually create an entire movie on this thing.
That's so crazy.
I find that to be really now. Not every movie should be told. Not every story should be just because you got a phone doesn't mean I'm interested.
Oh, we both have seen some of those.
We found out the hard way of you go to see somebody's short film, or you go to the theater and you're like, wow, you did it. All those words. Wow.
Yeah. Boy, that was really long.
That was.
Is there an Oscar for longest shot without a break in the field?
That's a thing. You did it. I'm going to give you some acknowledgement.
Hey, what project are we going to talk about for you? We talked about the gemstones, and that's dropping.
Lots of stuff.
Do some work.
Gemstones is really right now. I'm doing the Aaron Hernandez story, American sports story. It's fascinating. It's again Ryan Murphy. This is the third time I've worked for Ryan Murphy. I did 2 seasons of American Horror Story. First season was Coven playing Sarah Paulson's obstetrician. Sarah and I have become very close since. And then the second time was for Freak Show with Sarah Paulson and Jessica Lange and my dear friend, old Kate, Kathy Bates and Michael Chiklis, who and I went to college together. Angela Bassett, who I've known for years through her husband, Courtney, that I did 6 Degrees with back in the day. So it's a third time working for Ryan Murphy, which is always a joy. He likes to tell interesting and provocative stories. What's interesting about it, Aaron Hernandez, and now we're 4 episodes in. I start in episode 8 and 9 of 10. So I'm just towards the end. Played Detective Origi, who is the guy who actually breaks the case. He connects all the dots of the murder. So that's what I'll be coming in. It's not a spoiler alert. That's a historical fact of who the guy is. He's most recognized from the perp walk that everybody saw when Aaron Hernandez shirt's over and they're walking him out. It's like Origi is the guy on his left. And so that's coming out. It's every Tuesday on FX on Hulu. It's a FX show on Hulu. And so I just watched, actually, because I was out of town. I was in Charleston teaching live, and then for the wrap party of the Righteous Gemstones season 4. And so
I told y'all he was busy.
Yeah. No, it's true. I literally, I flew in Saturday, got up at 5:30 in the morning, and it was at a wrap party till midnight. Yeah. And then Sunday, I taught 2 classes for 3 hours each. Yeah. And there you go. I had dinner with
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
This is what I'm thinking. So I've been watching episodes of one of the things that's great about technology and all of these companies is that you can take old shows that no one watches and maybe they're syndicated, but maybe not. And you have to have the right kind of whatever. Okay. So I've been watching Flipper and it is so good. I mean, there's actual, the dad's not some dummy. He's like, no, listen, you guys are going to have to be accountable, And so there's good dad lessons there, but there's a person who they're paying real money to play a harp. Every episode, there is new harp playing. There is choral music in this stuff, the underwater photography. And look, they do an even better job now, but it was actual underwater shit, and then there's some archival footage. You're like, oh, that's archival. That's not that good.
No, but at that time, it was like totally state of the art.
Innovative.
Yeah.
Okay, so check this out. So Brian Kelly, the guy who plays the Ranger, he gets into a bad motorcycle accident in the late 60s, early 70s, and has to transition out of acting because he's basically a paraplegic. And so he becomes a screenwriter. He buys the rights to a book that ultimately becomes Blade Runner. And so he owns, I'm talking about hitting a home run. And then Blade Runner inspires Elon Musk to make the Cybertruck. And so Brian Kelly is the Cybertruck's granddaddy. It's funny. Wow. So my question is this: can we still do a show that's like that? That's like, look, we're going to have real people. We're going to have a real choir. We're really or is it just hyper expensive to have a bunch of kids? And by the way, it's not preachy. It's like there's just classic, procedural type storylines.
Yeah.
But it's not goddamn. It doesn't have to be a message in every damn show, right? Can we still make a show like that and maybe take some of the things that aren't great about it, but improve it with modern things? Can we still do that, or is that day dead?
No, it's definitely can be done. And here's a hilarious thing. And Gemstones, right? The Righteous Gemstones on HBO is a perfect example.
Yeah.
If you tell a good provocative story, even though your point of view may be the hypocrisy of televangelist church, but if you even make up something, like, for example, perfect example, season 1, without spoiler alert, there's money that was stored in one part of the church, somebody was stealing money from the church and storing it within the crawl space of the actual church. Some writer wrote the craziness and hypocrisy that they're siphoning off money and storing it in crawl spaces in the church. The next year, I don't know if you remember the story, the next year there's like $2 million found in the bathroom of Joel Osteen's church. Somehow there were stacks and stacks of bills. A plumber is in there like, hey man, I opened up this wall and there's all this money in there. And Joel's like, no.
I don't know the money say
there, and some they paid insurance on it. So you got to know you're doing a good thing and telling a good story when you totally make something crazy up about the hypocrisy of it. And then life happens.
Delivers.
That's the first example. Secondly is, even amidst I thought, and I said this to Danny McBride, I was like, Danny, why didn't we get banned by the Christian right? Because you're getting it right. And he goes, here's the thing, James. They're so in it, they don't realize that we're making fun. And at the end of the day, we're not making fun because the core theme values of our show are still family and faith.
Yeah.
It may be a messed up family, dysfunctional, and there's always I remind everybody, there's the word fun and dysfunctional. Just want to let you know.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of that, it's a little fun. It's a little crazy, that Christmas dinner with your drunken relatives, but it's fun, but it's dysfunctional. And then there's faith in there, which is like, it's that we always go back to like, we're capitalizing and making money on faith. And one of the things that gets offered for Gemstone, we have a live chorus. They do a live chorus with a live band.
Love it.
Because here's the thing. The churches in the area love the show, even though there's penises everywhere in the thing. And there's there's sex scenes and there's violence. They're like, that happened in the Bible too. That's all part of the game. But you're telling our story. They're so narcissistic. You're telling about the Sunday. Oh, the Sunday after the brunch after church. You're telling our story. So the churches say, look, you're telling our story. We're going to give you our church as a free location, HBO. We're going to have our chorus sign off because they want to be on your show so bad. They're going to sign off and they're going to work for free. So they bust the thing and we get to weird thing. So HBO is like, I don't know. We could do CGI and we could AI half the chorus, but these people said they want to come in here for free or they want to give us the church. It's like, yes.
Yes.
The answer to your question is yes. If you make a story human enough, if there's an audience for it, if it resonates with people, you want to, somehow you'll figure out a way,
Yeah. Well, listen, this has been awesome. And we got on a great, you just got going on the whole thing.
Look, you said break it down, dude. Everybody knows I break it down immediately.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, this is why we do these things. And I love to get into some of the nit and the grit because, it is like someone who works in daytime drama, right? that seems like that's a slog. But the right people get into that gig and they're like, this is what I do. I get paid to act. You kidding me? This is great, you know?
Yeah.
And so it might seem on the surface like,
but
oh,
7,
that's
I'm done by.
terrible.
I said 7, I'm done by 3.
Yeah.
Making
Yeah. And
100,000 a
they
year.
never leave that job. Never,
Right.
ever. So you know it's got to be good, right? So it's an amazing thing. I mean, these guys die at 80. They're like, I can't act anymore. But you were in a scene yesterday, like,
Exactly.
But that's how sweet. So all of these things, it's fun to explore the entire universe. You know, if you had a career and you were stuck working in procedurals and you had 250 credits at the end of your life, you would have done very well. People would beg to have that career. And so I love to talk about these things because there's all these sub industries and it's just really cool. Anything that you want to say in closing before we go? Otherwise, man, this has really been great. And I want to do it again 100 times. But
yeah, just, you know, I'm not really kind of a plug guy in terms of plugging, you know, just because I feel sometimes it can feel disingenuous after you and I having a really good conversation. But
but you are excited about the Righteous Gemstones.
I'm telling you, like they saw the sizzle reel, and the fact that I flew in and flew out each time and didn't know what anybody else was doing, and then I watched the sizzle reel, and I'm like, when Danny's like, "This is the best season that we've had so far," and each season's been better and better. So yeah, my recommendation is if people do have HBO, or now it's called Max, watch it. It's super fun. John Goodman is amazing. Danny McBride is great. Dee Dee Patterson is, I think, to this day, the funniest character comedy. Forget the bear. The bear is a drama. Everybody knows that. Let's stop giving them awards for comedy. You know, because if anybody's worked in a restaurant, the bear is not funny at all. It's a PTSD is what it is. So point being is that that's a show that needs to be watched more. And those who are in it, and when you get in it, it's super fun. There are some, you know, it's action comedy. So I'm a big fan of, you know, obviously watch as much as possible because it helps me and my kid. My son is also on the show. He plays Pontius. He plays Danny McBride's son, the angry middle son, Pontius, and John Goodman's grandson. And then every season we have incredible guest stars. This season we have a huge movie star guest star. And then we have another person well known for television that's got Golden Globes and Emmys who's joining us. I'm like, every season we just have great, you know, people that kind of come in. So it's going to be a fun one. So I recommend people to watch and, you know, keep going because it's like, if there's enough people, we'll probably get a 5th season and that'd be great. Because I know we have more stories to tell. And then the other thing is Aaron Hernandez is it's 10 episodes on FX Hulu. And I strongly recommend it, especially if people are really, it's an American story. It's a tragic story, you know, in the sense that, you know, a kid from Connecticut does well, and then it goes not so great. You know, it goes all the way to the big game and, you know, get all that, and then it's all taken away, you know. And in that too, he meets Tim Tebow, who helps him to be and, you know, get faith. And so like, it is a true American story.
It is.
Of that
and a tragedy.
And a tragic as well. And then, you know, for those who are actors out there that are looking for training, I do what's called an on-camera workout. And my website is oncameraworkouts.com. And I teach people privately if they, you know, can't make class time. So I watch people's self-tapes. I look at their pictures, resumes, reels. I help them kind of create a career blueprint privately. And then Monday night, I do a really cool thing for writers. I do a free Monday Fun Day, and on-camera workouts, plural. Yeah.
Oh, outs. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Workouts, plural. .com. And then Monday, I do a thing called Monday Fun Day, where we've been developing for the last 4 years features and TV pilots. So it's free on Zoom. We do a pay what you can, pay what you think it's worth, and actors can read material for free. Writers are putting their work out there and getting feedback, which is fantastic. And then now I teach a thing called Wednesday Lunch Crunch, where I teach them about self-taping and perfecting and mastering self-tapes. That's a 2-hour class. And then an evening class, I do a 4-week class about fundamentals of self-tape from script analysis. And this month we're doing Chicago Fire. Last month was The Bear, because it walked away with 23 Emmy nominations and a whole bunch of Emmys to win. So I pick a show and focus it on for the month and teach actors all the fundamentals from script analysis to self-tape, from soup to nuts. the whole deal.
If you guys want to get in, that's the place to go. All right, stand by. I'll be right back to you to say goodbye. Everybody else, I will see you tomorrow. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you.